It's another Ask Me Anything, and we've had quite a few questions come in actually, on the general theme of sex and relationships, and marriage and divorce and those sorts of things. So I had a piece of paper with my questions on, which seems to have got that one. Here. Brilliant. So thank you to all those who've sent us in things, and hopefully together we'll unpack some of the stuff. Because it's not just about what Rob thinks or I think or what the church thinks. There's an awful lot of wisdom in this room. So, do feel free to ask. If you have a question that we can't answer or it's something that's too big to unpack, we'll maybe have something on it later. But let's kick off with an easier one. Somebody has asked us, you meet a loving and devoted couple who are first cousins, and they ask you to bless that relationship. Is this allowed? It is under current laws in the UK, but would we bless their union? So, Rob.
Good question. Did this couple turn up at the vicarage? Am I marrying this couple, do you think? No.
A no from Shirley.
Anybody? No. Interesting.
Who is allowed to get married?
Well, they are.
They are?
Yeah, in the law of this country, cousins are allowed to get married. First cousins, and beyond, that's how that works. And if either of them, if you have a qualifying connection to this church, which is what people turn up and go, oh, can I get married here? And we have to check, are you a UK citizen? Have you previously been married? If you've been divorced, then I get to choose. I have the right of saying yes or no. But if you have ever lived in the parish, or your parents lived in the parish, or you were baptised in the parish, or you've been attending worship in the parish for 6 months, you have the right to get married here. And the law doesn't ask whether or not there are restrictions. You can't marry your parents or such, but you can marry your cousins. So I would have to either marry them, or I could say, well, I'm busy that day, and then I've got to find another vicar. But it is not at my discretion as to whether or not they get married here. I think I would. I would want to meet them. And there are relationships that I think are brilliant, but rarely is it for me to judge. So it would be interesting, and it would depend on the case. There you go. But that's the law. Yes? It's on. Just keep talking.
Isn't there a long list in the...
Isn't
there a long list in the back of the Book of Common Prayer about a man may not marry, a woman
yes,
may not marry?
Yeah,
there is.
And you can't make head nor tail of it, I don't think.
When
I've read it, and it's really complicated.
I think it's possibly changed slightly.
Has it?
With Parliament, but not much. So you can, there's a list.
You can look it up. Who's allowed to marry who? And then there's qualifying connections, as in if your parents or your grandparents have been worshipping here, aren't there, as well?
I think parents, but not grandparents.
Yeah, it might be.
But we have a list. So every time somebody checks, I go back to the source and I don't make it up. That's one of the things that happens. Yeah.
So, who's not allowed to get married yet?
Well, you need to be of... I'm not quite sure how it's phrased, but men and women can marry each other in church, and people of the same sex cannot.
Fair enough.
I don't actually have any specific guidance on how to define that. I don't think. No. So I don't think the law has quite caught up with the details of self-identification in terms of trans and intersex people.
No, it hasn't yet.
So that's not entirely... But by and large, heterosexual people can get married in church. Gay people cannot. So
we've been... Oh, sorry. Do you want to run round?
Let's make sure we've all... Is that microphone on now up there?
That?
Yeah, because otherwise it's not on the recording.
Could you give a blessing to gay people?
Yes, of sorts. And that's not entirely clear at the moment. So that's sort of flowed out of the Living in Love and Faith process that's been going on. Some of you did the Living in Love and Faith course with us here. So we did the course, and there was a book, and then there were discussions in Synod which changes the rules. And out of all that have come these things called the prayers for love and faith, which are blessings that you can use for anybody. They are beautiful prayers, some of which you might use for any couple.
Yeah.
So we are allowed to pray these blessings over couples of the same sex as each other. You are definitely allowed to do that in a regular service. Remember a couple of weeks ago we did a marriage blessing for Andrea and Elise before they left. as part of Sunday worship. We could do that for people of any sex and gender, so that's fine. It is not entirely clear, and we're waiting for people to do it and see if they get told off, kind of, for whether or not you could have a standalone Saturday afternoon wedding type blessing for people of the same sex. I would be minded to do so. At the moment, the way that's written is that that's at every priest's discretion. So if I decided, there would be vicars in churches going, no, I am not going to do that, and they cannot be made to, and the vicars who would love to do that, as I would, and you're obliged to check that with the PCC. But as a matter of worship, the PCC couldn't stop me from doing it if I did want to. So you can do that, but you can't marry them. But you can offer a kind of blessing. It's not quite clear what. Does that answer your question thoroughly enough? Any follow-up on that?
Well, I was going to say, actually, one of the questions that came in sort of follows that naturally, in that having gone through all the living in love and faith and finding these prayers to bless same-sex unions or not, it's sort of ended. It's the question here says it's come to a shuddering conclusion, and they asked, has it done more harm than good?
I wonder what you think. Some of you have done the course or been involved with it. What do you... Have we got any thoughts or opinions on that living in love and faith process that we followed as a church and that's led us to where we are now? Any thoughts on that? It's tricky.
Well, I agree, it has come to a shuddering halt. We watched it, we studied it, and then, well, what?
Yeah.
There's been a bit of a damp squib, I think.
There's been tension in Synod about it, certainly. It's done harm because the people close to
The people that it's upset have remained upset.
Yes.
And there have been people who have been invited into that and asked to share their stories and told, we will respect your stories, this will be helpful for us, and then put to one side again. Largely LGBTQ people have been, many of them feel mistreated by that process and had hopes raised and then dashed, and that has done harm. And it has set the Church of England kind of squabbling with itself, and not in a helpful way. Has it caused division, or has it just revealed division that was already there? I think one of the things that's come from it is that churches like this have had a good hard look at it, and there are now many hundreds of inclusive churches around the country where people have said, we're going to be all right with this. We will find ways to make sure you are welcome here, and that was not the case before we started this. So in that way, at least, good has come of it. And I think if we're ever going to get to a place that is settled, you have to go through the difficult bit first. So there's that. But I don't think it's for me as a safely married, privileged white vicar to say how harmful it's been when it didn't harm me. But it was a good question.
Yeah. Talking of harm, one of the questions we had was about marriages where there's been upset and harm. So if there's been a long-term relationship where things have gone wrong and hurt's been caused, the question was, what might the church do to assist forgiveness? How might we collectively or individually work towards forgiveness where there's been harm in a relationship?
Right. And there's all sorts of harm that there can be in a relationship. People can be having affairs, there can be neglect, there could be abuse. There's all sorts of things where relationships go wrong over a long time. And this is a real problem for the church, I think, because forgiveness is difficult and complicated. We are all told that we are supposed to be forgiving each other, right? And quite what that means and how we go about it is really difficult. So there's probably a few bits to answer this question. I've got to keep my head sort of straight. What do we want to not miss? How can the church help deal with the fallout of these things? Mm-hmm. What does forgiveness mean? I think the first thing is to say that the forgiveness does not mean letting go of things and letting things happen and saying that everything's all right. Jesus talks a lot about forgiveness in the New Testament, but he still talks about church discipline. There are things where he says to the disciples, if this is going wrong, then go to the person who's done wrong and have a word with them. And if that doesn't work, take your friends with them, have a word with them. We are allowed to say, we are always trying to move towards forgiving people who have done wrong. And nothing is beyond forgiveness for God, but we're still expected to intervene in people's lives where harm is being done. And Jesus is very clear that some sins really need addressing. That if we're causing vulnerable people to stumble, if people are exerting power in problematic ways, then something is to be done about that. So what forgiveness looks like doesn't mean saying letting people to continue with whatever harm it is that they are doing. It might mean saying to people, we are going to try and forgive you, we are going to try and love you, we want you to be a person who is flourishing, but you need to go and do that somewhere else. It's not fair for you to be here and the person who suffered the harm in this relationship, they get to stay in their church. I don't know how you forgive people, though. It's really hard, especially when it's unforgivable. If it's easy to forgive people, then it almost doesn't count. The people I've had to forgive in my life mostly involved me getting over it and having a word with myself, because it hadn't been that bad, and certainly not worse than anything I'd done. It's only when it's an unforgivable thing that we really need to work on forgiveness and praying for them. But we must not assume that anybody needs to just let stuff go and accept things.
I think it's also hard if you don't see any changes in the person who you're trying to forgive. If there's not a sense of their wanting to change, and I guess the word is repent, isn't it? Turn around, and that makes it harder.
Yeah, I think there's different aspects to forgiveness.
Yeah,
there's rebuilding a relationship that needs restoring, which will require repentance, and there's letting go of your anger and desire for vengeance, which is the forgiveness bit. We can always work towards forgiving people and trying not to hate them, but that doesn't mean we have to still be in relationship with them if they are not being honest with us, not repenting, not trying to do better.
There was a lovely phrase about using forgiveness like a set of bolt cutters that I once read, and I thought that was a beautiful way of putting it. You're releasing yourself from that person in the wrong, and you're releasing them as well, and saying, I'm ending that, I'm handing it over. And I think that was for me, that's a nice image.
Yeah.
But there are some things, as you say, that are unforgivable that we need to address sometimes in church.
Yeah, it's really hard. And nothing is unforgivable for God, but certainly things are for us. And the church can occasionally be too nice. We are not commanded to be nice. We are commanded to be good and kind, and that will often mean stepping forward and saying to the safeguarding officer or to me or to the wardens, something needs to be done about this, please, rather than assuming the best of people. We want to hope the best for people. So, have we got any thoughts or feedback on this, like forgiveness in relationships, forgiveness, difficult things in marriages? I don't want this to be the Rob and Lizzie show.
No. Fair enough.
What about somebody... Oh, sorry. I was going to say, what about somebody who's struggling to forgive?
What if you're struggling to forgive somebody?
Can you give them?
I would say, well done. Keep struggling to forgive. It doesn't have to mean forgetting those things happened, but I would say you start by praying for that person. Now, if somebody's really struggling to forgive, come and have a word with me, because it's going to be complicated. You want to find, it isn't going to be me, but you want to find someone you can trust to sit with and talk it out. But it just means letting go of your desire to do them harm, I think, is the first thing. Follow-up question, yeah.
Well, don't you find if it's reached that position in the first place, the law usually takes over, because it's usually they've done something completely wrong. Some of this physical abuse people do, and things, or social services if it involves children and things like that.
Yes. Yeah, hopefully the law will be involved as well, and the church should be on the side of helping that. Sometimes the church has been getting in the way of that, saying, no, we don't need to go there because we're trying to forgive these people, and that is wrong.
Because you can still help a person who's in prison.
Yep.
Yes.
You can still help a person in there, but they do have to
confront the consequences.
Their sin and confront what the evil they have done.
Yes, absolutely.
And I do believe that if you have done something that bad, you should pay for it.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yes, I do too.
Forgiveness doesn't mean not facing consequences at all.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Any more on that one?
Any more on this? How do we forgive?
It's such a difficult topic. There's so much you could say. It's trying to think out. It's a feeling rather than an intellectual thing, isn't it?
And sometimes somebody was talking to me about having to forgive somebody who'd done something to someone else. Like if it hasn't been done to you, if there's been harm in your family, say one of your children has suffered at somebody's hands, it's easier. It's not easier, but it is more straightforward to see how they might work towards forgiving someone who has hurt them, because it's their business. How do we forgive people who've hurt other people? How do we forgive churches that have let things happen? How do we deal with...
Indeed.
Yeah, how do we deal with things that weren't directly about us and deal with our feelings in that? I think you have to find people to talk with and pray with. It's really complicated. Yeah.
We have other questions, and we have about 5 minutes.
I've got about 5. We'll see how many of these we can get through.
Okay. Any that you'd like out of that one, or... There are a lot. Or the one on the back.
I think we'll do the one on the back. The really good question about the teenagers dating, and we'll do that in more depth at the next one. It was a really good question that, what should we be telling our teenagers? And some of you will have teenagers, or will soon have teenagers, or have teenage grandchildren. This is a question from someone saying, it was really simple, clear advice when I was at church as a teenager. Don't touch things you don't have. Don't lie down in a bedroom with these people. It was really clear, but actually problematical in all sorts of ways. But once you stop giving really clear, don't do this advice and the problems that it comes with, what do we say? I think that's not a 5-minute answer.
I can give you mine if you want.
Yes, go on.
I wouldn't cover everything. I got all the don'ts. Don't do, don't do, don't do. And it wasn't helpful, because then you had the people who were doing it feeling either really excited that they were breaking the rules or really condemned, and the bad kids did and the good kids didn't, and that's not helpful for anybody either way. Times have changed, I think, in terms of the numbers of children who are going to be growing up in Christian homes, who are going to meet Christian other partners, is minimal. So we're dealing with reality in what we think sex is about and with whom. I think there should be more do's than don'ts. So when I was younger, we were given a little book called Make It Safe and Make It Happy, which is good advice and a good start, but being safe and being happy, absolutely, and thinking about consent and about precautions and about who you're with and, making it enjoyable. But I think we've got more than that. I think there should be also about friendship, actually. And we can teach our children to be good friends to one another, rather than focus on what you do with your bodies, what you do with your head and your heart first. So I would think, for me, concentrating on what does love look like, and respect look like. The golden rule is love others as yourself. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, strength, mind, but love others as yourself. We hear that love is patient, and love is kind, and love doesn't boast or envy, and all these bad things that love isn't. That's something to value and build into your relationships. If your child is thinking of going off and dating, well, who are they with? Can they trust them? Will they be someone that they want to spend time with, other than doing the stuff that they're desperate to get on with and do? Because, your hormones are raging when you're 16. Is your relationship somewhere where, there's joy and there's friendship? And if you're not in a relationship, are your friendships healthy? So I think there's something about creating a healthy, loving relationship before you get any further, and to base that, to be a base. And I think we don't maybe necessarily focus on friendships with kids. We sort of worry about them going off and doing the thing they shouldn't and getting into trouble. But if we modelled good friendships and good relationships and thought about who are you with before you decide to do that, would you trust them? And will it be somewhere where you'll thrive? Or is it just for the sake of it? Will they cheat on you? Those kind of things is what I think I'd do. So yes, the practicalities, but also, the safety and the happiness, but also what's behind it? Who are you with? Who are you spending your time with? Do you care about them? Do they care about you? Is there concern for one another in this?
Yeah, find somebody who cares for you and whom you care for. Yeah. I suppose we should probably wrap this up. I was asking a friend of mine who's a relationship counsellor, and she was saying, she's a Christian, she deals with people who are dealing with the fallout of having made poor decisions or had poor things happen to them in terms of when they decided to have sex in their lives. And she just would like the church to be saying different things to different people, which I thought was helpful. That teenagers are more than capable of making sensible decisions. Yeah. They're not stupid, but they are not always capable of sticking to them, because that part of their brain is not what's alive yet. You're still developing your frontal lobe. So you've got to be talking to your kids and helping them work out sensible guidelines for themselves, and then helping them stick to their rules. And she also has worked with lots of people who have waited to have sex once they're married, perhaps for too long, and ended up in marriages where they haven't worked out how to do this yet, and how to do it with each other, and having real problems. And she has met couples that she really thinks, if you had had some more sex before marriage, this would have helped you. So certainly, there are different rules for different people, and it's going to be in the details. We probably all need people to talk to these things about. I think we've shown that we're largely unembarrassable, so you can always ask us, but you've got to have a crew to process this stuff with. If you have more questions about this, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But probably not now.
Not now. Thank you, everybody. So we will start with one that's slightly, maybe we'll start with a nice one. Imagine, Lo, that two first cousins, have come to Europe asking to be married in this church.
Oh.
What do we think? Is it legal? Is it possible? What would you do?
What would I do? What would you do? These are the sorts of questions we sit at theological college and have to work out, what are we going to do before we get here? And then you get here and it's interesting. What would you all do? Are you marrying these first cousins? Knock on the vicarage door? No, you're not? No? Yes? Yes? Okay. All right, you want to have a conversation with them about genetic safety. Yeah. Fundamentally, I don't get to say no to them. That is not one of the grounds on which I can say no. That is the law. You are allowed to marry your first cousin in this country. And I try and have a conversation with everybody who turns up to get married about what's going on. I try not to make any judgments about who I'm not going to marry unless there are particular things that I am allowed to, and that's not one of them. But that might be part of the conversation to have with them. Yeah, not my place to judge. You are allowed to get married here. Yeah.
So who is allowed to get married in church?
Apart from your cousin.
Yeah, apart from your cousin.
There's a list of which relatives you must not marry and which you can. But you can get married in this church if you are heterosexual, first of all. That's still the law in this country. If either of you have ever lived in the parish, been baptised in the parish, parents married or baptised in the parish. So there's a list of those things that we call qualifying connections. You can't just turn up somewhere and go, well, this is a pretty church, can I get married here, please? Because then all the pretty churches get lots of weddings and lots of money, and the other churches don't. So if you don't meet any of those, you need to come here for 6 months so you can say, no, this is my church, I'm part of this. So that you need a qualifying connection. You need to tell me if you've been married before. If you are divorced, I am then allowed to say, no, I'm not prepared to marry you for various reasons. It's at vicar's discretion. And yeah, that's an interesting conversation. And you need to be a British citizen. And it gets complicated if you're not. But we can sort that out. So that's who's allowed to get married here. Yeah.
I assume you also need to not be married.
You need to be single. Because you are either never married, widowed, or divorced. Yes, that's one of the things I need to check. Are you single? Yeah. Which is why we have a parish administrator, because I forget some of these things. Yeah.
So on the lines of people who can't get married, one of the questions that we got asked was about the living in love and faith process, which I don't know if some of you are aware of. It was about finding prayerful ways of trying to bless commitments between
same-sex couples.
Same-sex couples.
Yeah.
It's something the Church of England have been doing for a while, and the person who asked this question said, the living in love and faith process has come to a shuddering conclusion. Not sure, have we? Has it done more harm than good, and what happens next? What do we think?
Who's heard of the living in love and faith process? Who are we talking to? Who has not heard of the living in love and faith process? Okay. So we need to catch you up. So it was this whole project, Living in Love and Faith, started a few years ago to help churches talk to each other and listen to each other about these issues, but about the people involved with them, and to think theologically and pastorally together about what do we do? Because at the moment, there's just this hard line. These people can get married, those people can't hardly do anything. How do we think well together? And from it came the course, which we did 3 years ago. We did the course here, 6 weeks, much of which was testimony. And people of LGBTQ people and people with firm opinions of either way sharing their stories. It was really helpful. There were books, there's been debates in Synod. What's come of it? There are these prayers of love and faith that have come of it that we can offer for people. At the moment, I remember a couple of weeks ago, Andrea and Elise had prayers blessing their marriage here in the church service. We could now do that for same-sex couples in a church service. It's not entirely clear whether we could do that on its own in a standalone service.
So like a wedding. We can't have it so it looks like a wedding. Yeah.
So it seems. But maybe we can, and we're waiting for someone to try it and see how much trouble they get into. So that's going on. Those prayers are at vicar's discretion as well. I would be very happy to do that. Some of my colleagues are not. The PCC can't say to any vicar, you need to do this, and vice versa. So it's at clergy discretion. Has it done more harm than good? I don't think I dare say, because I have not been harmed by it. There are people who were very involved in the middle of the church, like talking to Synod, sharing their stories and their lives, being really vulnerable and real in a very public way about how the church had hurt them and what they wanted and needed. And some of those people feel like they have been sort of taken advantage of and then ignored and cut off and not treated as well as they should have been by systems. Some of it's been politicised. There certainly have been harms, and it's not for me to say if there's been more good than harm. I think there has been lots of good from it. There are hundreds of churches like this up and down the country that are now not only inclusive and affirming and really trying hard to be a safe space where, you can look on the Inclusive Church website if you're LGBTQ+ and go, this is going to be okay for me. If I go there, I will not be judged, I will be included, I'll be all right, they're doing their best. And there would not be hundreds of churches if we hadn't gone through that. So that's a good thing.
So it's overt.
It's really clear. And you need to be, when we first started looking at people who were going, why do we need to be extra welcoming and jump up and down about being inclusive? Surely we're just welcoming. But actually, the church has been so rubbish at being welcoming to LGBTQ people over the years that many of them are hurt and damaged and don't want to go anywhere near church. So unless you're really explicit about it, they don't know. So I think lots of good has come from it. What happens next, I don't know. It helps that we have a new Archbishop of Canterbury, or shortly will, who has been broadly positive about the process. I don't know what she's going to say and what we can get away with in Synod. And some of it will come down to how well we can all think carefully about who we vote on to Synod the next time there are elections. We'll need to be a bit careful and cunning and political about this sort of thing, sadly. But I don't know what will be next. For now, what this church can do is continue to offer those prayers if anybody wants them and be a safe space and bang on about it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so another question we were asked was also about relationships where things maybe aren't so healthy. So if there's been, the question is, where there's been a long-term harm in a relationship, what might the church do to assist forgiveness? How might we help collectively or individually?
Yeah, this was a question from someone who'd got experience in their family of something going really wrong in a marriage. And there's all sorts of ways that can happen. So I speak to people where there's been long-term affairs and the deceit that comes with that. Sometimes there's abuse, sometimes there's neglect, that sort of thing. So they're different things. But how does the church help with forgiveness? What does forgiveness mean? I don't know, has anybody got any wisdom before we come to us? Any thoughts?
Usually it's the family.
Here, hang on, if you wait till we got the microphone, otherwise it's not on the video, so no one can hear it at home. Yes?
Yeah, I'm just thinking that I've got a brother who's having problems with a wife. Having said that, usually it's a family thing where families get together over issues like this and try and help them as best they can, rather than probably the church.
Okay.
Probably these people don't go to church anyway.
Well, yes, most people don't go to church, but okay. So sometimes families help before it gets anywhere near the church. That's certainly true, and it depends what the sort of harm is. To what extent are we supposed to try and help and fix things was one of the questions, one of the conversations we had. Sometimes the church can be too forgiving or misunderstand what forgiveness is. So like, okay, well, you guys need to be reconciling. That's how this works. You guys need to be getting back together and sorting this relationship out. That's what's important. And I just don't think that's true. And I think it's dangerous when that is preached. I think forgiveness does not mean putting up with people who are hurting you or harming you.
No.
Forgiveness means not holding anger against people or just trying to not hold anger against people. But Jesus was very clear that church discipline is a good thing and getting yourself safe is a good thing, that people should feel free to leave when they have to. Reconciliation is a good thing. So it's really complicated. What the church can do is recognise that this is nuanced and not try and make things worse. What else does forgiveness look like? What have we missed?
I think for me, I remember a picture of forgiveness looking like bolt cutters, where you release yourself from whatever harm, as well as the other person. And you can hand it over to God that way. It makes it sound easy. It isn't. It's a heart thing, not a head thing. I think it's a process, and even wanting to begin in forgiveness is a good start to the journey.
Yep. Yeah, I think and the first person you free when you forgive them is yourself. But it's really hard. Someone was asking about how do we forgive when it didn't happen to us. Like it's not easy, but it's more straightforward to forgive somebody who's hurt you because they did it to you. But if they've hurt someone in your family, it gets really complicated. How do you let go of that hurt when it was not on your behalf? I don't know. Kim? Hang on, wait a second, go on, keep talking.
I think with forgiveness, the thing is that unforgiveness only hurts you. Mm-hmm. It doesn't hurt the person who's hurt you. It only hurts you. And it makes their sin persist in your life, but they're living their life oblivious of what's going on. So as hard as it is sometimes to put it down, it doesn't mean you have to like them again. Yeah. It doesn't mean you have to repair the relationship, but you have to put down your feelings about what's happened, because otherwise it's almost like a cancer, and it just grows and it festers, and sometimes you need help from the church with prayer to help you through that, because it's hard to let things go. And especially over a long time, I think unforgiveness can become almost part of your identity, because it's something you fall back on. It's always there in the background. So I guess certainly as church leadership, I would hope that we would be available to help people and to pray with people through that process, and it won't be quick.
No.
Thank
you very much.
I think it also is worth saying that it doesn't mean forgiveness means there's no consequences. It doesn't mean you're let off the hook. If somebody's done something that's abusive and wrong, there should be consequences. Yeah, and there have been times in churches where people have been too quick to do forgiveness and say, we need to, don't say anything, let's not go to the police, we're going to do forgiveness. And that's just not true. So, just want to be really clear, if you're aware of any abusive relationships in the church, then we would like to help. Please do something about it if you possibly can bring yourself to. And it's always your choice if you're on the receiving end of that. And it needs to be done safely. But there are people here who can help, who would like to help. And it is not the church's job to say, it is your job to stay there and suffer and put up with it. That's not true.
Can I ask a question? Why should the church be involved when there's people out there who are experts in this?
Why should the church be involved when there are people out there who are expert in this? I think it's a really good point. That it is not the church's job to involve itself in ways where we're not expert in this. But some parts of this are the church's business. If these are church people, if there are people in the church going through this whose some of the implications of this are on your faith, how do you continue to believe in God? Then you should be talking to your trusted faith people, which might be me and Lizzie, it might be your small group, about how do I do my faith life. So the church should be involved in that side of it. The church can be involved in saying, we see that you are struggling, let us love you while you do the difficult thing of going through those external things. We will go with you to counselling, we will go with you to the police. So it's the church's job to be a loving presence, not to get involved where it's not our business, not to get involved where we're not experts, but to be a good neighbour to somebody sometimes means asking, what does support from us look like right now? And if people say, please do this with me, then that's our business. And not just in this, in lots of situations. We sometimes have people take people to the hospital because they've hurt themselves. It's not the church's business. Of course it is, because we love them. So it's that, does that make sense? That we try and help and to love people. Does that help you, David?
We're not judge and jury.
Like most people here, whole church people, will say the prayers for all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
It either works or it doesn't, because, I was brought up in a Christian family, and all my life I've got this Bible. How much has my Bible changed?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm going to move on from that. Victoria, have you got a question behind
Well,
David
I was
there?
just going to say another way that I think the church can be really impactful in being involved in certain situations is up front, because sometimes there's quite a lot of theology to unravel. Like, I can imagine people coming to you with a circumstance of, but the Bible tells me I've got to stay married regardless. My husband has needs. I've got to fulfill them. Consent isn't necessarily a thing. I'm his property. I promise to obey. There are a lot of kind of nuanced things that people can think are biblical truth that maybe need unpacking first to give permission for somebody to then go and see a specialist in counselling or what have you. But just to unravel some of those biblical misconceptions.
Yeah. People come to us with lots of spiritual experiences and baggages and things from different churches, and for us to speak clearly and truthfully as often as it comes up, to not duck the issue. When one of the readings helps us talk about this, not go, well, I don't want to talk about that, it's a bit awkward. Like, we're called to set people free. Val?
I think sometimes if you're struggling with anything like that and you don't want to go to the authorities, tell somebody. Let them sort you out. Like, you'd have a word with the vicar. He'll tell you what to do. I think it's the first person you contact.
Sometimes, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I might help you work out what you know you need to do to give you a bit of encouragement. That's what church people can do, is help people and hold people as they're going through it.
Thank you. Yeah, we're not here as police and judge and jury, but we are here as a supportive family, and there will be issues where faith is entangled with these sort of things. One question we did get, different subject, but similar in that it's sort of, would we give advice? And sometimes yes, and sometimes no, I wouldn't. This question was, what would you tell the teenagers about to start dating? So your kids, your grandchildren, your godchildren, your nieces and nephews, what's the advice from the vicar on starting dating?
It's a great question.
Do you want me?
Yeah.
Where are we going?
I had a lot of advice when I was at youth group, and it was very, very clear and straightforward, and I think largely unhelpful in all sorts of ways.
Yeah, I had similar advice. Lots of don'ts. Don't do things. Lots of things not to do. I think it put sex up on a bit of a pedestal. That was, wow, this is really exciting. You not to do it. And that's not great. We don't want to do that to it. So, David, sorry.
We've got a lot to get through.
Do you mind just a second? We'll come back to you. I'm in my flow. Sorry, David. But and for us it was a lot of don'ts, and things have changed. And I think now it should be more of a focus. I would like to think there's more focus on do's and how you look after yourself. When I was probably about 16, there was a book called Make It Safe and Make It Happy, which, safe and happy is good. We want to make sure our children are prepared, that it's things like consent and contraception and all that sort of stuff is talked about. But I think as Christians we can go beyond safety and happiness, because Bob and Anne could be having a very safe and happy time, but if Anne's married to Fred, that's not very safe and happy and concerning. There's no love for Fred in that, if Bob and Anne are having a safe and happy time and Anne is married. So I think I'd like to think about love and friendship, actually, and the values we put on friendships. Are we teaching our kids to be good friends? Are we teaching them values of respect and honesty? We know that the Bible says love is patient and kind. It doesn't boast. It doesn't envy. if you're going to be dating people, are they the sort of people who are like that? Are they the sort of people you can trust? Do you know how to trust people? Will they let you down? So things about that, I would say, would be where you'd focus away from the practicalities, would be thinking about who are you with? What sort of person are they? Before you even go anywhere near it, are you even able to understand what you're actually going to do and the risks that you're taking with your heart as well as with your body? So to me, it's about being a good friend. You can have a really good marriage without sex in it, but can you have a good marriage without friendship in it? I'm not so sure. Sorry, there's a hand over there, Victoria, behind us.
Thank you. I just wanted to say the same as what you've just said, Lizzie, but I've got a 14-year-old, and consent, I don't think was ever taught to us at school,
No.
but it is now in the syllabus, so they are now learning about consent at school, which I think is really important.
Brilliant.
So,
that's good to know.
While you've got the microphone, do you want us, like the church leadership, to be telling you anything about what to talk to your kids about in terms of sex and relationships?
Or is it entirely up to you, frankly?
well, you did a parental class a while ago, and I wasn't able to make it, actually, because I can't remember why, but I couldn't make that session. But I would definitely come to another one, yes. Parenting a teenager is
It's hard.
hard, and
It's
I
really
don't know what I'm
hard.
doing. It's, you learn as you go along, so yes.
That's my microphone, apparently. Okay, so you would like some help from the church to be working that out, but maybe not for me to be telling you, you should be doing this.
I think
That's where I am. Yeah.
forming your own honest conclusions where you
Yeah,
feel
it's-
you've made it is
it's
important.
How to talk to them, yes. Wording. How to
Wording.
how do you explain to a 14-year-old how to be safe?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. It's really hard, isn't it? I think that one of the things that I keep coming back to, I've had to reassess this since having a child. What I want is for the kids I know to still be able to talk to me about this, whatever it is. And the harder you come down with any rules, the less likely that is. But that doesn't mean I don't want to give them any guidelines. I think teenagers are more than capable of understanding and working out what are sensible policies for themselves on how they do this. They're not as good at actually sticking to that, because that's the bit of their brain that has yet to develop. The frontal lobe is the bit that puts the brakes on. So I think it's going to be about us helping each other have those decisions. We'll try and put another one of those evenings on and work with each other on what are sensible bits of advice and conversations and policies and things like that. Yeah.
We should probably
be wrapping up, yeah.
Thank you, everybody. We've touched on things, there's never the time, but conversations with us at any point are more than welcome. We won't necessarily give you a dogmatic piece of advice, but hopefully, prayer or anyone else you feel like talking to, we're more than happy to.
Yeah. Come back to us. And if you've got anything else that you'd like us to follow up on, we will. There are plenty left that we didn't get to.
There were a few.
And at some point, if you get sermons, go, oh, that's interesting. Well, maybe it came from one of those questions. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.